Well, this is Perry Peacock with Wilderness Innovation, and I'm doing a little. The podcast at this time is on the our new personal survival blankets, and we really like the things. I've been using them for. I've been using the actual blanket for about 3 years now, and very happy with it. And I'm up camping here, basically like a first day of spring camp out. A little bit of mostly snow's gone, but there's some patches around here. But you might be able to hear the campfire in the background crackling away a little bit, and it's really a very nice evening. Got some good weather in the last week or so. We've had some pretty high winds up to 50 miles an hour and hardly going under 20. So it's been keeping us going. But anyway, at any rate, we're getting ready to launch the personal survival blankets on our website and make them available to everybody. And just wanted to cover a little bit about what they are and the benefit. The concept really came from two different places. One of those is just back the olden days type cowboy bedroll type deal with the wool blankets and wool and canvas sleeping gear. Pretty heavy and bulky back in those days, but riding a horse or whatever, it didn't really matter too much. But I like the multifunctionality of how you could lay out the cowboy style bedroll. You know, you could have, depending on how cold the weather was, you could configure it differently, or add a second blanket or a third or whatever, depending on the conditions. And then you could just use them however you wanted to, and just roll them up and put them away when you're done. So I kind of like that concept, and I don't typically like the mummy bags all that much. I don't like being confined a lot of times. I don't know. I kind of like the looseness and that sort of thing of a blanket. Mind you, you can. I've done it before. You can, fold up a blanket into a mummy style bag. So it's not like you can't have one if you don't want it. So that's always a possibility. So that's one of the areas that the inspiration for the blanket came from, and the other one is for about I don't know what it's been, 32 or 3 years maybe, I don't know, at least 32 years. Been involved in using cool weather gear and cold weather gear with polyurethane foam as the insulator, and I've really been happy with that. I've made everything there is with it: hats and insulated shirts and underwear, jackets, mittens, mucklucks, sleeping bags, you name it, all kind of stuff I've made over the years. And I've always just liked the feel of it, I guess. And I've got all kinds of other gear. I've got down bags and all kinds of the different synthetics and that sort of thing. And I like them. I like all those and everything, but I just found myself always, whenever there's a choice or whatever, it seemed like I'd wind up coming back to the foam insulated gear. And I don't know, I just found that there's just a certain comfort to it that's, I guess, a little bit different than some of the other gear. So I wanted to kind of marry the two concepts together and make, instead of making foam insulated sleeping bags like I've done before, I really love the concept of the foam insulated blanket. And like I said, I've been using one on a test basis for almost 3 years. It's been pretty much the exclusive thing I've used as my sleeping gear during that period of time. There's been a few times here and there, and excuse me a little bit as I adjust my fire, but I've used it I've used it pretty much exclusively in all that time. The one that I've been using, it was it was a little bit thinner one. The thickness of the insulation was 3/8 of an inch. So as you can imagine, that is a little bit thin, but I was actually surprised at how well it worked for me. I found that I would even in colder weather or whatever, it seemed like it worked fine for me. If I had my other preparations in order, so a little bit of shelter or something like that. And the extreme case of using that personal survival blanket was one year I told my wife there was a kind of a blizzard forecast coming in, and so I wanted to go out in it. And so I took my foam blanket, and I took one of our personal survival tarps, the regular size, with me, and I just set that up and let the winds blow and everything, and I was in my little blanket, my personal survival blanket, all cozied up and everything, and during the night the storm quit as far as the snow and everything, and the skies just cleared right off, and the temperatures just started to drop. And by morning we were 4 and 5 below zero Fahrenheit, and as the temperatures got down there, to be honest, I wouldn't say that I was comfortable, because that's very much an extreme for something of that thin of an insulation. But I guess the thing I started monitoring my condition as I noticed the temperature dropped, and just trying to keep track of my body temperature, all the symptoms and signs, that sort of thing, and kind of noting those things and everything. And I got a little chilled, and I got a little shivers here and there, but I noticed I only got to a certain level and nothing got worse. I just kind of stabilized at that point. And so even though I was uncomfortable, I was pretty impressed that the blanket actually did provide me some safety, and that my condition didn't worsen with that minimal amount of protection on me. So that's kind of, like I say, an extreme case, and I wouldn't submit for anybody to try that or whatever. I wouldn't want to necessarily do it again, but it kind of gives you an idea. The current blankets, what we're doing right now is we may at some point do perhaps a more expedition level or something that would be a thicker insulation, but we found that we can do pretty well with a 1/2 inch of insulation. And one thing about the polyurethane foam insulation, now this isn't the real heavy, stiff stuff like you would get in furniture or that sort of thing. This stuff is extremely light. It's about as light as you can get and still have something. But one thing that I've noticed over the years that I like about it is it's super resilient. This is just absolutely a premium grade foam. I mean, you can have it all squashed up and everything and pop it open, and it'll quickly come back out to full thickness again, without much difficulty at all. And but what I like about it is the fact that versus other insulations, and I'm not really against any of them. They all have their place. They all have good features to them. I'm just kind of mentioning, just some of the things that I like about the foam insulation that we're using in this gear. And but the one thing about it is the resilience that it has, and due to that, it's like you're always maintaining your the thickness, your loft, that sort of thing. Even I've done things where, you know, I've chopped a hole in the ice and gone down in the water, or put my gear down in the water, or gear in myself and everything. And the thing about it is, even you come right up out of the water, and you have the thickness of insulation immediately as to what you had before. And a lot of people look at foam kind of things and they think sponge. They think, oh, it gets wet, it'll soak up the moisture. But polyurethane doesn't really like to retain the water, the moisture. And anything, you know, if you get it wet, gravity just drains it right out of there quickly. You know, we'll have some videos where we'll show some of that. But you know, you get that stuff in the water and pull it out, and it's like a waterfall as the water gushes out of there. And so the water doesn't like to stay in it, and so that's a good thing. The other thing that I like, and I've done this quite a number of times, where I've gone to bed wet and wrapped up in my blanket and basically been able to dry things out during the night as my body heat drives the moisture through my personal survival blanket. And the coverings that is on it that covers the foam core is they're breathable nylon fabrics, and so any moisture that's in there readily passes through them to the outside, and so you have a great deal of safety in that respect. I did one example, I'll tell you. I've actually done this several times, but I'll just tell you of one instance. Went out, there was a forecast of rain changing to snow, and so I decided to just go out in my street clothes, and if you hear any jets flying over this, even though I'm out here in the mountains and stuff, we're over kind of a main flyway here, so you will hear some of those occasionally. But anyway, so I went out during this storm, just kind of, you know, raining and that sort of thing, and I just took my street clothes, and I did take my tarp and set it up. I figured that maybe at some point in the night I might want to get under it or whatever, so I just took that as a precaution or whatever. And I just sat down to the side of a tree. Had my blanket, my personal survival blanket, wrapped all around me, and I just sit there and let the rain come down, and you know, and it just, you know, after a while, of course, there was water in it, moisture in it, because, you know, it'd get into it, but it didn't. It's not like it filled clear up, because gravity is draining it away as, you know, as fast as it's coming in. But, you know, nevertheless, it was wet or moist. And so anyway, towards midway through the night, or a little past midway through the night, the rain did change to snow, and I stayed out in that for a little while, and even though I could tell I was damp, I didn't really feel a coldness to me. So, and I thought, well, it's working pretty good, maintaining, you know, some level of heat that was pretty comfortable, even though I could tell there was wetness in the blanket. And anyway, so I stayed out there. It snowed for a while, that sort of thing, and I was fine. And I did get in a situation where I kind of moved around. I wound up rolling into a little slight depression that I hadn't realized. I couldn't really tell in the night. And it was actually full of water. So that was very wet and very icy. But anyway, so I basically, after that point, I basically just got up and went and got underneath my PST, my personal survival tarp that I had previously set up, and I just got under there, wrapped the blanket around me, and I, laid down and went to sleep. I did notice that, I still was experiencing a little bit of a chill, and ultimately what I wound up doing is I took all of my clothing off down to my underwear. I took my socks off and all that, and I wrapped this personal survival blanket. I wrapped it around my legs and my feet. I could wrap it around a couple times down there because it's small diameter. And then up around my chest area and everything, I'd wrapped it around, kind of tucked it in. And once I took my clothes off, I was actually, all of a sudden, it was like somebody turned a heater on. You know, I felt, I felt a lot of warmth and everything. So I thought, wow, this is working really well. And so I stayed like that through the night into the morning, and I noticed at morning when I woke up and got up that everything from about I'd say about my mid thighs on up to my shoulder, that part of the blanket that was around me, I could hardly even feel any moistness to it. I felt a tiny bit. I couldn't wring any water out or anything like that. So my body heat had literally, between the body heat and the gravity just kind of pulling, you know, water and moisture out of the blanket, the blanket was virtually dry, the top half of it. Now down around my feet, especially at the very bottom, I could wring a little bit of water out. But, you know, probably I was thinking back, and what I'd do again was, the next time is during the night, just flip it head for foot, you know, so that because the core of your body, your chest, your abdomen, there's a lot of heat in there, so that can quickly drive moisture out and dry it all out. But I mean, regardless, it was perfectly satisfactory. I slept really well. It was nice and cozy. It was a great experience that I had using that, and I've done similar things since then a number of times and had very good results. And so that's one of the features of the blanket, is it is totally breathable, does not hold on to water. It's warm when it's, a lot of people say warm wet or whatever, and I don't know. If it's absolutely totally wet, I don't know how exactly warm you'd be, but it won't stay totally wet because the water, you know, gushes out of it. So, but basically, wet or dry, the blanket is warm, which is similar, which I kind of like that because that's similar to wool, like some wool blankets. In fact, I have one wool blanket that is a real nice Pendleton, an old Pendleton, 100% wool, very nice blanket. I actually slept, all but a few nights, I slept in that outside for a whole year. You know, in the summertime, in the winter, spring, fall, snow, sleet, freezing rain. You know, I slept in that thing, and it was very nice. The only thing about it was you couldn't, once it got wet, it still would be, you know, reasonably warm, but, you know, drying it out without some kind of external means is pretty difficult. And so that's the nice thing I like about our PSB, is as that one's designed, you know, your body heat can dry it out. You can, you know, you can hang it out the next day on a tree or whatever, and, you know, whatever moisture will run out of it, the sun can get on that thing and help, you know, get anything else out of it. I mean, the nice thing about it's easy to dry it, reasonably easy to dry it out in the wilderness, which is hard to say about virtually any other kind of insulating medium. So that's one thing I really like about the PSB, and so you know, I liked it so much that I just decided, well, we talked about it and decided, well, let's make it available to everybody then. You know, it's had 3 years of testing. I mean, plus my experience of the past 30 dealing with that type of setup, although not exactly a blanket per se, but sleeping bags and other clothing gear and that sort of thing. And so I've had a considerable experience with that kind of gear, and I just love it. And I'm excited to be able to share this product with everybody. And I talked to a guy on the phone had noticed that blanket in some of our pictures and in some videos and stuff recently, and he called. So, all right, I want to know about this thing. So we talked a little bit, and I kind of explained it to him. And I thought probably now is a good time to go ahead and do a podcast on it explain a few things about it, kind of get that ready for our launch and everything. But just to give you an idea, comfort range wise. Okay, so we're talking about an insulation of a 1/2 inch thick, and this stuff, by the way, is very, very compressible. You can really squeeze it down. And as a side note, so I don't forget, we will be offering these personal survival blankets with an optional compressor bag, and we've obtained some new fabric from the Multicam folks. That is, it's Cordura, but it's a third of the weight of the Cordura that we normally use on our other gear bags. But it's still very, very strong. Not as strong as the others, but still plenty strong. And so we get a little bit of lightweightness to it, and we made a compressor bags that you can buy as an addition if you want to. You can just stuff these things. You can stuff them in like a down bag, or you can roll them up and put them in however you want. And once you get them in there, you can pull down on the straps, and you can take about 40% of the size away through compressing it. And well, you could probably get 50%. I'm at really, but I don't know. To me, 40% is reasonable, but I'm sure you could do more. But I didn't take it to the extreme. But anyway, so very compressible. Now the comfort range on these blankets, and I'm going by my own experience, and I like I said, I've used it extensively. I am comfortable personally down in the 20s, typically with the PSB, and now I have used it down into the teens and down into even at 9, 10, 11 degrees before, and it's actually still even comfortable at that point if you have other preparations in place. In other words, if you have yourself some insulation off the ground or whatever, whether that's a bow bed or whatever you're doing, that sort of thing, or maybe you even have a pad of some sort or whatever. And the other thing is, you do want to have some kind of shelter, ideally, to keep even a slight breeze can take away 10 or 15 degrees of comfort level from you. So if you can keep the breeze from getting at you, that's a big plus right there. So that's just kind of based on my experience, some of the things I've done. But myself, I personally say that the blanket is usable in the 30s. That's the range I would give to normal people. I'm out quite a bit, so I don't know. I think really I really hate cold, actually, personally. People say that I'm in it all the time. Maybe I must love it, but I hate being cold. But I don't really think that I have that great of a cold tolerance compared to a lot of people, but I don't know. But I like I say, I'm good in the 20s and even down into the teens with it, with proper preparation. But I'd say for the average person that thing would be good down into the 30-degree area. And here again, a lot of this is going to depend on your other preparations. Just throwing the blanket down on the icy ground or cold ground or whatever with no other preparations at all, you may find yourself not comfortable, in the 30s. It might be in the 40s or 50s, depending on, how you've set yourself up. So, I would put that caveat in there that, with normal preparations that a person would normally do, who's experienced in the outdoors, it's easily good into the 30s and perhaps into the 20s for some people. So that's kind of the comfort range we're looking at. Now, the other thing that to go along with that is also the sizing that we have them available in. And excuse me, I'm going to talk while I'm adjusting the fire again here. So, I'm up here by myself. There's nobody to do this for me, so. But let's move some of this wood around a little bit here. Trying to build me up a nice bed of coals so that I can cook me a little dinner on it. All right, there we go. I'll be good for a little bit now. But okay, so anyway, back to the sizes. Now the size that I tested for 3 years was 6 feet by 6 feet, and I guess I should do inches, you know. but I don't know. It's just even for me. It's just even feet, you know. So, but basically, 60 inches by 60 inches is what I used for 3 years, and you know, and it worked. And it worked pretty well for me. You know, like I say, I constantly found myself choosing to use that versus a lot of the other stuff that I have available. I have plenty of good gear available, but I don't know, I just wind up using that because I really liked it. But the one thing, now if you watched our video on making our poncho into a one-person teepee, which is, it's kind of a small teepee, but you know, you saw in there that I typically like to sleep on my side, and I usually bend my legs a little bit, so it's kind of a little bit of fetal position, sort of, that's what's comfortable to me a lot if I'm sleeping on a flat bed. When I sleep in the hammock, I just sleep stretched out, but when I'm sleeping on the ground or whatever, or on a bow mattress or something, I typically like to lay on my side. So the 6 foot did work fairly well for me because I'm 5'10", but being that I would sleep on my side and curl up slightly, I still could be totally enclosed by the blanket, even though it was only 6 feet by 6 feet. But I always did feel that it would have been better to have a little bit more, because then if I felt like stretching out, I could. So anyway, so what we've done here is our standard size of PSB, personal survival blanket, is 6 feet wide and 7 feet tall. So so that's 72 by 84 inches, roughly, and I mean it's a little bit under that time time everything's all sewn up and everything like that, but we're pretty close to that. So that's the standard size. So for most people that might be 6 feet or a little bit over 6 feet or whatever, that standard size would normally work pretty good. Now, one thing I would like to say is that I use these. I like to use these things differently than probably you've ever been told to use sleeping gear, and I'll explain that in a minute. And so, consequently, I typically prefer to have the blanket be a little taller than you might normally even buy a sleeping bag, and I'll get into that in just a minute. So the standard size is 6 feet wide by 7 feet tall, and then we make another size, which is we just call it the tall, and that's 6 feet wide and 8 feet tall. So if you have somebody a little taller, 6'4", 6.5 feet tall, or something like that, or even they just want it like that, it gives you a little bit more height to get your whole body in, get all in around you, and so that's the tall. So that's the second size, and we have a third size, which is 7 feet wide by 8 feet tall. So that's our large, and so that's it serves actually a couple purposes. One, if you're a person that is a little larger in size, you may want that 7 foot width to give you a little bit more wraparound. And if you're also tall, you may want that height to give you a little bit more in that way too. Now I should point out that these blankets, because it's a blanket, not a sleeping bag, you can put it around you however you want to. I've done a lot of times where I've, just stopped to take a nap somewhere for an hour or so and just got it out and laid up against some brush or whatever and just wrapped it all around me and just laid back and go for a snooze a little bit. So, you can wrap it around you any way you want. And I mention that because you could, let's say you got the large PSB, the 7 foot by 8 foot tall. Well, if you wanted to, you could use that horizontally rather than vertically, and it would still be 7 feet tall, but the 8 foot width would now, you'd be able to get more wrap around you or fold it around you a little bit differently or something like that, and you could perhaps double the amount of insulation by just using a large PSB and just turn it sideways to use it. So that's another option. Now up here camping tonight, what I've done is I do have the large with me, and what I've done is I've set it up you'd set my poncho up as a hammock and put the blanket in there. And what I did is I turned it horizontal sideways so that it's 8 feet wide instead of 8 feet tall. And then I just folded it into thirds. And then when I put it in my hammock, what I did is put 2/3 or 2 layers underneath me and 1 layer over the top of me. And so that gives me a little bit extra insulation underneath me in the hammock. And 1 layer over me will be plenty good for our temperatures here. So that's another thing to think about and that's another thing I like about using a blanket versus a mummy bag or something like that, is there's a bunch of different ways that I can use the thing, and so I can really turn it into multi-purpose. So I've covered the thickness, the sizes, the temperature range, a little bit of the history of the blanket. Let me give you, told a little about being warm, whether it's wet, whether the blanket is wet or dry. Talked about that it's easy to dry, that gravity pulls most of the water out of it, and your body heat can drive pretty much the rest of it out. And so now that it comes to one of the final aspects of it is that I mentioned is I recommend that you sleep in this thing a little bit differently than probably you've been taught before. All the time in my life growing up and in my experience and all that sort of thing, it's always been told that you get in your bag and you put a hat on your head, a knit cap or something like that, and then you pull the hood of the bag right tightly around your face, and on a lot of these bags, some of my better bags have draft collars and stuff like that in them, so that one of the problems is every time your chest rises and falls, it's kind of like a bellows that a blacksmith would use. Every time your chest expands, your bag or whatever goes up, and it draws cold air in. Every time you breathe out, your chest falls, and it blows warm air out. And so, a lot of bag manufacturers have come up with draft collars and all sorts of things like that to try to trap that heat down in around your body. And personally, I don't really like that. I feel like I'm in an iron lung, because you get in there and you draw that thing down, and you draw a hood down around you, and it's like I just feel like I'm in a straitjacket, So, I mean, I've slept like that plenty of times and been fine, 20, 30, 40 below zero, whatever. Not a problem, but I really prefer to be able to have a little bit more room, a little more space. And what I found a long time ago, even on my down bag and some other things like that, is I found I had a excuse me, got a little whiff of smoke there. I had a real nice down bag that I got from REI some years ago, and it's very nice. I've slept in some pretty cold temperatures in it. Been pretty nice. But I actually found that I became much more comfortable when I took. I'd made a foam jacket, so it was insulated with foam, it was all breathable fabric and everything. And I found I'd lay that over the upper part of my body and my head while I was in my down bag, and I found that I slept so much better because what happened was I created a miniature atmosphere around my head, my neck, and my upper body that was warm air because everything is breathable enough that you get plenty of fresh air. It's not like you're not going to have any problem there whatsoever. But it's kind of contains a little bit of that warm air right around you, which really makes a significant difference. I'd say that makes a difference of 10 to 15 degrees possibly in your comfort range by being able to do something like that. Now, the nice thing about the foam jacket that I used over top of my face was it had enough body and resiliency to it that it didn't like lay right on my face, which that would have been kind of irritating too, which reminds me of a time when I made a debris hut and I basically just filled the thing completely full of leaves, and I just dove in there with my street clothes on in a rainy, snowy condition, and I slept through the night just like that without anything but leaves. And the only irritating thing was the leaves kept getting on my nose and my face, and that's just kind of irritating a little bit till I kind of got situated. But anyway, that's one of the things I do like about the foam over top of you, is it does have a little bit of body to it, so it's not necessarily right in your face, So that makes it a lot more comfortable to do that with. Now, in what I found with the PSBs is even better, is that if it's really cold, I will actually, I told you about how I can't remember if I did or not. I'll mention it. So on the foot end, what I would do is kind of gather together the blanket and put a piece of shock cord. We have some little shock cord, that couple pieces that your PSB will come with. And I just gathered around, put that shock cord. It has a cord lock on it, so you just cinch it down. So basically what that does is close in the foot into your blanket so you can't slide out of the bottom of it. And it kind of helps to keep everything around your feet and your lower legs and everything. And I actually, typically, rather than just gob it up, I wind up actually kind of rolling it slightly down there. So I wind up with actually extra layers of insulation down on my lower legs and feet, which, there is less body heat down there, so that's an advantage. Because you can automatically, with the blanket, give the lower end of your body more insulation than up around your chest that doesn't need as much. And if it's really cold, what I do is on the head end, I roll it the same kind of way and put a shock cord on it. And then basically I kind of get in it, which I would picture it's almost like you're crawling in a clamshell sort of thing. And because you're kind of entering from the middle. And then you just get inside of there. And it's not, you don't really feel so confined, and everything's not like all over you. And if you want to get out, all you do is just open it like you'd open a clamshell. Just pop it open and jump out. So it's really comfortable that way. But the thing that happens is the whole inside of your blanket actually becomes a little mini atmosphere that is warm and more cozy than outside, and you're not really experiencing any kind of cold drafts and that sort of thing. So that's a real huge benefit. And that's one of the reasons I had mentioned earlier that I'd tell you why I like the blanket to be perhaps even a little taller than maybe I would buy the sleeping bag, because I like to, if it gets colder weather, I like to do the head and the foot like that, and I need just a little bit more length in order to do that. So that works, and at 5'10", I can just get by with the standard with the standard blanket at 7 feet tall. That's just good enough for me. So if you're, taller than 5'10", you may, if you want to plan on doing that sort of thing, you probably want to go with the tall, which gives you another foot to work with, and gives you a little more cozy factor. So anyway, that's a little bit about our PSB series. Will be coming out, and it might be out the time you hear this. I don't know, but anyway, so the key features are that they're multifunctional. You can use them as a sleeping bag, as a blanket. You can use them, horizontally or vertically. You can fold them over whichever way you need to make it conform to whatever you're doing. I wish I had some pictures of it. I was out in a kind of a blizzardy condition one time a number of years ago. It was actually before we introduced our poncho, our PSS, because I would have had that on then. But I was out in kind of a blizzardy condition and with minimal clothing, and I just took my PSB and I wrapped it around me kind of a little bit on the high side, so it kind of came up around my head a little bit. And I took a piece of parachute cord and I tied it off in a couple places, like kind of a little below my, between my waist and armpits. And I was able to kind of configure that in a way that it pretty well shielded me. It's very cozy. I walked around about half a mile in that condition, and it was actually pretty cozy, and I did pretty well with it. So there's a lot of different ways you can use it. So I'm thinking about, it's good to use it for sleeping. If you're out hunting or you're just out scouting around or whatever, and you get in a spot where maybe you got to sit there for an hour or maybe even longer and kind of scope things out with binoculars, or you're waiting to meet some friends at a certain point or something. You just pop that thing out, the PSB, the personal survival blanket out, wrap it around you, sit down, get yourself comfortable, take a snooze while you're waiting, or if you're scoping things out, you can be nice and cozy and comfortable while you're doing it. And keep in mind that it's offered. The standard configuration is going to be camouflage or multicam on the outside, and the inside will be like OD green, and that's a personal survival blanket. The personal concealment blanket is basically going to be camo on both sides. And so you could do something such as multicam on both sides, or you could do the standard multicam on one side, and you could do the new multicam Alpine, which is the snow camo. You could put that on the inside so it'd make it reversible. Now, the more camo fabric we have on it, the more expensive it's going to be, because that's one of the significant factors in the cost. But anyway, you just do it up for whatever your need is, And another option is we may offer a basic one, which would be OD on both sides, and that would save you some money there. We also have some availability of the ACU camo that has been used by the military for a number of years. So we could even do that as one of the camos. So anyway, that's a few ways currently that we're going to offer it. In the future, we may offer it in some others, but we'll just kind of have to see. For now, we don't want to have too many different things all at once when we introduce this thing. But anyway, so that's the colors, the sizes, the thicknesses, the comfort ranges, kind of some idea of how to use it, some things you can do with it, that sort of thing. We commonly in our family use the things sitting around camp and that sort of thing. It's very comfortable. One thing to remember is if you're sitting around the campfire, you don't want to put the blanket between you and the campfire, because two reasons. One, it's going to insulate you from the fire, so you don't really feel it until your blanket melts. So if you're using it, typically what we do is we just put it on the back side that's away from the fire, and that way it keeps the back side of you nice and cozy, and you feel the radiance from the fire on the front side. So anyway, so that's just a little tip there. But anyway, so that's a little bit about our personal survival blanket, and hope you get a chance to try it out. Be sure and look on Facebook on our page there for pictures and little blurbs and stuff about it here and there. Our newsletter, we're going to try to get that fired up and going again. And for sure, be sure and check out our YouTube channel, our Wilderness Innovation YouTube channel, because we will have a good deal of information on there, and we'll just keep on adding to it as time goes on. So anyway, hey, this is Perry Peacock up here, sitting around my campfire up here in the mountains on the first day of spring. Just loving life and enjoying time out here. And I'm getting a little bit hungry, so I'm going to stop this old recording here and call that good, and I'm going to cook me up something to eat here and just kind of sit around and look at the stars here. So anyway, Perry Peacock Wilderness Innovation, hope you enjoy the time in the outdoors like I do. And hopefully some of our gear will help you to enjoy it more and to be safe and confident in being out. And you take care, enjoy your time in the outdoors. Once again, Perry Peacock Wilderness Innovation. Love the outdoors.